Every shop space, maker space, and even work table is an externalization of a philosophy about how to work, the constraints involved, and the tools that are chosen. Melissa Ang is an armor designer and fabricator. This is some of her work, who builds this magnificent, flexible, gorgeous Gothic armor in a literal office space. This challenges some of my preconceived notions about what is possible in a makerspace. Let's visit hers and see just how she creates such beautiful work.
Hey, I'm Melissa Ng and I'm LumaCluster. I am a fantasy armor designer, as you can see, and everything happens in this room, which looks like an office space because it is an office space. And it's actually a room that was converted from my other company, which is actually right outside this door, and that other company is a music center. So everything that happens here has, every device, every machine, tool I pick has to be carefully selected so it's not disruptive. And even outside here, if you go down the hallway, I do have 2 other rooms devoted to LumaCluster. And one of those rooms is a 3D printing room, and the other small room is a vacuum form room. But everything here, this is the room where all the armor making happens. So I make a lot of modular fantasy armor, and what that means is that I do create a lot of things that are for performance types, but I care very much about durability, wearability, a lot of functionality and aesthetics. And a lot of the types of performers that use it, they might be like stunt guys or actors, actresses, performers, musicians. I've even had aerial artists asking about it or working with it. But what I also love is seeing how we can inject and incorporate fantasy armor flair into everyday wear and everyday casual outfits, combining with, you know, just like a nice blazer or leather jackets, or just any way we can add a little bit more of our fantasy into everyday life. So then everything I do first begins with a sketch. So you can see here, I do a lot of just free blind sketching, and I just let my hand go free as much as I can, not judge myself too hard when I create these designs, because I just want to have fun with it as I'm doing it. But once I'm done with a sketch, I scan that into Blender and then I mesh model it, and I create my 3D model. And this is for like the jewelry stuff, but the same thing applies when I make armor or masks. So you can see here with the Felicia Day Dreamer Regalia, I have some very messy sketches here. But messy sketching works for me too, because, you know, I understand what it is I need to get from this. Felicia Day loved foxes, so I made sure that there were fox elements and very natural flowing, I guess, plant-like features on this, and the 9 tails. And you can see all the foxes here as well. And yeah, from sketches, then I move on to the actual fun stuff, which is the 3D modeling. It's kind of funny how I started, because I got into 3D modeling on a whim. Before LumaCluster existed, you know, I just knew I wanted to be an artist, but I did not know what kind of artist I wanted to be. I had tried a lot of different mediums all throughout my life, and nothing stuck. And I got bored of everything. I thought, this is impossible. How can I be an artist if I can't stick with it? So one day at a maker fair, though, I stumbled on this thing called 3D printing, and I was just mesmerized. They told me that there was a competition, and I thought, okay, I'll give myself 3 months to try to 3D model something and submit for this competition. And there were a lot of sleepless nights, but I created my first 3D print and I won the competition. And this is that first 3D print. So this is a very special piece to me. I painted it later on, but this 3D print called the Dreamer Mask Illumination was and is still something I'm very proud of. This 3D print made me think, you know, maybe I'm onto something here. And yes, within those first few months of 3D modeling and 3D printing, I was able to work on some amazing projects. I helped with a prosthetic leg, and I helped to create a mask for like Norman Reedus and Ji Hae. But I also really had so much fun creating some much more complex mask designs that you can see here. They progressively get more complicated in the patterning. And one of my masks that I'm the most proud of, aside from this one, is the Dreamer Mask Transformation. As you can see here, it was kind of the first sign that I was interested in some, modularity or some other function for my pieces. You can see from here, the mask is very complex, but I was already ready for the next challenge. And that's when I started making armor. So I wanted my next challenge to be armor design. But the thing is, when I first started, of course, I didn't know anything about armor. Everything I knew about armor was from like fantasy films, fantasy games. I was big on fantasy RPG games. And that's where my inspiration was drawn from when I first made this Dreamer regalia for Felicia Day, one of my favorite actors. But while I was happy with the result, it was aesthetically pleasing. In the end, it still wasn't functional. And while that might not matter to some, that mattered to me because it was fragile. The material wasn't very strong. It was very hard to transport. And I knew, okay, well, that's not good. I need to do something about that. And so I actually reached out to an armor consultant to help me figure this out because, why not reach out to the people who know more than yourself? And I reached out to someone named Ian Laspina. He is also known as Knight Errant. He's an arms and armor educator. And he was also on board with me. He wanted to see more functionality and practicality in fantasy armor, which we don't feel like we see enough of, but it's getting there. But we wanted to see what we could throw in there ourselves. So he showed me a lot of great resources to help me understand armor design. And I happen to love 15th century Gothic armor. What people may not know is that 15th century Gothic armor is much more flamboyant, has a lot of fluting. Fluting is like those ridges that you see, those intricate detailed designs, and it's very fitted, very form-fitting. The gauntlets are gorgeous. They're not like mittens. They actually have articulated fingers. So every single portion of the armor, to me, it was screaming a fantasy feel. So I felt like, okay, I have to build off the 15th century Gothic armor aesthetic and see what I could do with it. And what I had to start with was understanding how the armor looks and works. Not just how it looks, but how it comes together. And I did that with what you see here in the Sovereign armor. It has elements of the Gothic armor design. Of course, I added like flares of my own, changed the shape of it a little bit. Obviously, the helmet had, Gothic armor doesn't have masks like this, but, I found ways to take my own liberties and in changing some of the feel of Gothic armor, and of course, applied my aesthetics. Just like my masks, I draw the ink drawings, all the intricate details on ink and on paper. So you have the breastplate here, which you can see right here underneath the placard, which is this armor piece that covers the breastplate. And you also have, what I have here, I have the mask, because I love masks, so I'm going to keep doing masks. But I loved most of it, but what was also the hardest was making my first gauntlet. And this gauntlet for the Sovereign armor was probably the hardest part of the entire armor. So you can see here, I was very proud of this first piece. And you can see the usual aesthetic that you've seen in a lot of my designs. But it was also something that inspired me to still dive deeper. And I wanted to still understand more about how the armor works. But the great thing is from this armor to the Sovereign armor, a huge leap was already made for me. I was able to create flexible armor. So this is flexible, this is not. This is durable. I could stuff this in a suitcase. It's been all over in multiple continents at this point, and it's still come back in very good condition. Actors have worn it, models have worn it, and I could make adjustable sizes. So this could fit various body shapes and sizes. A huge improvement, whereas this was only able to fit one figure. It was custom made to fit one person. And, I wasn't really happy with that. So this to me was a sign of, the future of what Lumen Cluster should be, which was more modular design. And in the end, because I was doing that research and, I was so lucky to have people helping me understand how armor worked, believe it or not, it made designing much easier for me. So much so that, when I designed other pieces, having that knowledge of armor, helmets, gauntlet design, it didn't become a challenge for me to figure out what I would want to see as a final design anymore. There was a huge difficulty that was taken out of the equation. So I started making like sallet. A sallet is the type of helmet style. And this is based off of a sallet. But originally, this helmet looked like this. And this is the earliest version of this helmet, which is part of the Phoenix armor design that I'm working on. And this first version was not satisfactory. But it was after that research in armor that I found new ways to approach design, where you could have mask designs and helmet designs and really add a lot of versatility. It gave me a lot more freedom. So the thing I always encourage is doing the research and really finding new ways to explore and challenge yourself. And from that, I actually was able to take the armor research and go into cosplay for the first time and apply my armor knowledge to other things I love, like when I created the Full Metal Alchemist arm here. So while I love the aesthetics of the Dreamer Regalia, the downside is it was designed for one individual. And when I created the Sovereign armor, I realized this is the future of Lumen Cluster. I feel like this is where I need to go. I want that modularity, that comfort, that flexibility, the versatility, and the freedom to allow people to perform. So while I was really happy with creating armor that would make it really comfortable for people to perform, I wasn't really happy with the idea of fantasy costume armor just staying in this world of costume. So I became really obsessed with this idea because, we're really fascinated by armor. We feel powerful, we feel magical, we feel awe-inspiring when we wear armor. So I thought, how can I make armor feel more comfortable in everyday clothing, everyday wear? Is this possible? We do this with our favorite superheroes. Designers have made their outfits easy to wear and really incorporate their favorite heroes. So I thought, why can't we do the same thing here? So yeah, here is my latest iteration of the Phoenix Gauntlet. And you can see just how much of a difference there is compared to all the other older prototypes. What you see here is, all the rivets are there. These are actually connected by rivets. They're joined, not glued together. There's stitching all along the gauntlet and into the glove. It's also touchscreen compatible, which is really important. And it's just, I was so proud and I am so happy about this design, especially when you compare it to the very first Sovereign Gauntlet, as you see here. And all of us go through so much stress and frustration in our day-to-day life. We're essentially heroes of our own movies, right? And what makes me happy is knowing that in this little space, I might be able to help make their dream fantasy armor and bring to life a little bit of their inner hero.